Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the MX Endurance Podcast, episode edition. I don't know what it is. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by none other than the man with 1,000 nicknames. I just gave him another one somehow by accident. The sexiest voice in triathlon, James Bale. Mate, that was a pretty clunky intro, but how you going, mate?
I quite like that. If I ever write an autobiography, mate, it's going to be the man with 1,000 nicknames. And
the man of 1,000 faces, the man of 1,000 nicknames.
Yeah. I'm well. I haven't been very well. I've been fighting a really quite dark, flu-y cold thing since about Friday last week, and I'm just about coming out of that now. And as you can see, I've still got a fairly bluesy voice going on, but I'm hoping to be back on top in the next couple of days. What's been happening? No training because of that, because I've been ill. So I just have to let my immune system deal with it because it doesn't work quite as well as everyone else's. And here I am, another podcast. How are you, mate?
I was going to say, I think that sort of that British virus thing is just, it's like, isn't it part of the Welcome to Britain pack? You get the, raincoat to deal with the crap weather. You get the cold and flu tablets to deal with the fact you're going to get a flu like 12 times during the year. You get the gumboots or the what do you guys call them? The gumboots?
Wellies.
Yeah, wellies to deal with all the shit weather. It's just like...
and the seasonal illness, mate, which doesn't seem to go away, but it's been a particularly savage one this year. I swear to God that all these illnesses have just been like plotting while COVID was happening and no one was getting seasonal colds, and then it's come back with a vengeance because it was aggressive, mate. It was aggressive. I was having some weird night's sleep with some weird dreams.
I'm sorry to hear it.
No? There you
go. What is happening with me? Not heaps, mate. Just plugging away as per usual. Back into the swing of things with the swim bike run. Running is actually starting to increase a little bit, which is quite nice. I'm still doing the 4 minutes, 1 minute run in, walk in, but I got up to 14 repeats. So I made it. I think I ran 13K. Yesterday, day before, which was good.
Must be pretty boring though, doing the 4 minute thing. Is it pretty boring? Is it a boring thing?
The
run walk thing? Yeah.
Although the good thing is when I was first starting to run again a little bit, 2 or 3 weeks ago now, I loved the fact that I could disguise my lack of fitness with it's because I've got to stop because the watch is. It's not that I'm actually really struggling to run. It's no, watch says it's time to walk. Yeah, this isn't my choice. This is the training's choice. In reality, I'm like, oh God, thank Christ for that.
Getting
to the end of the 1 minute recovery.
It's like me on the trails when I get to an uphill. Well, the comeback is real, mate. Come on, time to focus now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. No, it is. And like I said, I think I drew a line in the sand very early on, maybe late last year, early this year. But it's like I'm not going to do that thing that I think a lot of triathletes do, where we sort of just try to deal with the injuries and they just always stay there. I'm actually really going to try to get the body properly right before I start really committing to races and stuff again. And it's quite nice. I think it's, I've had this injury since 2019. So it's, we're talking at 4 years at this point. So I think it's like, no, it's time to probably get this fixed and just actually get back to being a semi-decent athlete, which would be nice. But that's from training point that a bit. And then, in the world of triathlon, mate, the Lord giveth, Lord taketh away. The last few weeks we have had a fair bit to talk about. This week, I think it's going to be a particularly, we'll see how we go. I did appreciate the feedback from people talking about how hideously boring listening to the PTO ranking talk was, and I'm like, I feel you. It was pretty boring going through.
We get it. It was done. I think I made that point during the podcast, didn't I? That this is just white noise. And I think to the conversation I was having on Twitter with I can't remember his name, Sebastian or something.
Sebastian.
Yeah, that's it. It's meant to be boring. It's boring. It's not great podcast content, but you don't want to have to know the ins and outs of a ranking system. You don't want all the audience needs is confidence in it. Once you've got confidence in it, then the numbers be the numbers, and you just look at the ranking system, and that gives you an indication of where the best pros in the sport sit relative to their compatriots. That's it.
Yeah, and I think the problem is I had hoped when we saw these changes, I thought, okay, well, this seems to address a lot of the issues that people were having with the previous ranking system. So hopefully this appeases that, and as you say, gives people the confidence in the rankings. And to me, it's just like the conversation's still just going on. It's like people still nitpicking the ranking system. People still nitpicking. I'm like, is it? And I'm starting to wonder because of our situation where we every week try to wrap up everything. Is it that there is just nothing else to talk about in triathlon, and these diehard
No, it's
frothers like
the
us are going shit? Well,
it's the fact that the conversation on Twitter is only a very, very small percentage of those people that pay attention to triathlon. It's not. It's an echo chamber that isn't representative of how much people do or don't pay attention to how the ranking system is built. It's the ranking system itself is there, and we need it to represent, give us an indication of where people sit against each other. And the little ecosystem that we see on Twitter or whatever social media platform we're delving into that day, it's a small representation of those people that do actually pay attention to it.
It's very funny you say that, because for me, at least, it's like I see the same 2 or 3 accounts that reply to tweets or are on the same tweets, and then about 10 that are all muted. So it's just like this tweet is by an account you've muted. This tweet is by an account you've muted. This tweet is by an account. So I miss a lot of the conversation. But yeah, I do send it. Yeah, you're right. It is a very small sort of group, and I think it's a bit like what we spoke about with the Kona change. I think what you're seeing is if you would just purely look at the reaction online, you'd say that this is an overwhelmingly negative decision, where in the reality, it's just that there's such an incredibly small percentage of people in the sport who actually give a fuck that it appears that way, where in reality they are probably, like, we're talking about, like, 10% of people or something. I mean, again, don't at me angry people on Twitter for that percentage, but I think that is the reality, is that there's such a small percentage who really do follow it to the point where they do want to sort of comment on everything. So yeah, you're right. But we are actually going to talk about the rankings a little bit this week again, just because we know how much everybody enjoyed it. But I don't know. Should we start with PTO stuff this week, or should we leave that for the end? Or I reckon we start with it, because it's definitely speaking of Twitter, these are the conversations I've been having on Twitter a lot this week, and I've seen a lot of discussion around this, because there was sort of I guess you'd call it a little semi-sneaky little move from the PTO this week when they put out an announcement, and on the back of that announcement, they tried to drop some other little tidbits that I guess they were hoping would sort of not get focused on too much. Now, did you see this?
I did indeed. Like you say, it's when the government tries to pass a bill, and sneaks some other little things. It's a positive bill and sneaks some other little bits and pieces attached to it just to get it through without anybody noticing, because that's what they've done, and it makes interesting reading. I'll let you lead off with your notes, and I'll add comments as you go.
Well, again, I don't really have notes per se. I think the main thing I noticed, let's start with the good news, is that they have announced their PTO European Tour. Again, it's one of those, I think I'd heard that it was going to be in Ibiza for about a month.
Ibiza.
Because I knew that ITU Long Distance World Championships is in Ibiza on May 7th. So this is on May 6th, the day before, which is the same setup that they had in Shamaran last year around the Collins Cup, where they had the Collins Cup on one day, and then they had ITU Long Distance Worlds the next day, where we saw Lucy Charles get that world title. That I think is fantastic. I like that they are aligning the pro race, and I'm assuming because again, I actually think it's quite unclear if there's age group races at all these events, but I like that they are doing this where they're attaching themselves to a existing or a more established long distance event, because I think that's when you are a lot more likely to get some crowds there. And maybe would you put it on the day before the race or day after? I'd probably say the day after everybody's done their race. But again, I think it's a good thing, because we've seen at the Canadian and US Open races where it was just the PTO event, it probably didn't have the uptake. I think we saw that at one of them, and they had like 240 age groupers doing the race. Whereas it's something like, ITU, and it's because it's not just ITU long distance. There's a whole range of races happening that weekend in Ibiza. You should see a pretty decent number of triathletes, which I would hope then means that we get some good spectators and crowds for this race. So that's a good thing. What do you think about the Ibiza location? Does it make you want to go do it or get involved? I know you love Ibiza.
Yeah, I do. I think it's a beautiful place. I've never actually been there. I haven't set foot on the island, but I know that Ibiza is a wonderful location. I mean, obviously, it's got its
just in spirit.
It's renowned for its club scene, but that is a very small part of what is a beautiful island. So it'll be a unique destination for people to go to, and also a sort of a desirable destination for people to holiday at, and make a trip of it at the same time, because it's Europe is a buffet, isn't it? You can go to one place and then travel around. It's a fantastic location in the world to go and experience lots of different cultures at once. So you're not stuck with just going to Ibiza. It's not like they're holding it in you know Sydney, and then you're in Australia and you can't really go anywhere else, can you? Do you know what I mean?
Mate, why would you want to? Why would you want to?
Why
You're
would
here.
why would you
Once
want
you're in
to?
Australia, mate, you don't need to go anywhere else. You've got
No,
everything you
no.
need. You got beaches and outback and deadly animals and racists.
The more the more the more exciting locations the PTO announce, the better their smorgasbord of events gets, and I'm here for it, and I'm a big fan of it. It's over the 100k distance again, isn't it? This one, so they're just rolling that out with a 2 kilometer swim, 8 kilometer bike, and an 18 kilometer run. And as you said, it's alongside the 2023 World Triathlon Multisport Championships. So I think that's a good idea because you're anchoring, like we've mentioned this before, but you're anchoring it to an existing event, and you're more likely, if anything, you're more likely to get a bigger amount of spectators by the side of the road. So you're going to get just more feet on the ground around the event and more of a buzz around the event. And I think that's kind of what they need.
And it's similar again to what they're doing in America in Milwaukee, because that's around the USA national championships. So I assume. Actually, I'm thinking out, like, because I did see this online where we're not sure about the PTO age group thing, but maybe they're not, because or they are, and it's going to be for those people who are, say, traveling to ITU or the national champs who didn't qualify and then want to do something. But yeah, you're right. It is very good to see them. This model seems to be that they seem to be partnering with a more established event and going. The Singapore's obviously not, because it's the first race, but it's really looking. If you look at the 3 races we know about and the one that we sort of know about, which is, so we've now got Milwaukee, Singapore, Ibiza, and Marrakesh. Milwaukee's looking like the odd one out a little bit, isn't it? It's like
A little
Marrakesh, this exotic location in Morocco. Ibiza, this incredible, renowned, famous party island. Singapore, the central financial hub of Asia and one of the most progressive, futuristic cities in the world. Milwaukee.
I wonder. Hey, look, we're going to get some Milwaukeeans contacting us now and giving us a bollocking, because I'm sure there's something good about Milwaukee that we do not know as non-natives to that particular area. I'm sure culturally it's got something, something there. They may reach out, tell us, DM Tim on Instagram. He'd love to know.
Please, I'd love to know what your equivalent is of, like, the Marina Bay Sands. What's the Marina Bay Sands in Milwaukee? I'd love to know. Or the yeah, but no, it means, I guess, we've got a good vision now of what their season is. They have added the one race. Is that true? Because they've added the Asian race, which they didn't have last year, and there's no Canadian race this year. So there's no Canadian race. They've got the European one. Collins Cup is probably moving to Africa, which I like, and I'm actually really excited for that Marrakesh location. Yeah. I believe it's got some decent investment behind it, but we have a pretty good idea of their season, so that's good. The changes.
It is good.
The things that they snuck into this
before you move on to changes, we've got a quote from Marisol, World Triathlon president.
Favorite.
Yeah. She said, after the great experience of the last year at San Marino, we're delighted to partner again with the PTO to work together on an event that will be a great spectacle for all the athletes and spectators, as well as for Ibiza and the island. The partnership with the PTO is just natural for us, and it's great to see many of the world's very best long-distance triathletes in action in this type of combined event, offering the athletes multiple opportunities to race. We're all ready to offer all the athletes the best experience possible and make Ibiza an unforgettable event for all. Now, I know that quote in itself is pretty dry, but it does show that the synergy and partnership between World Triathlon and the PTO is something that they are actively considering and thinking about.
Which, again, I find bizarre. Because this is also like, so there's a few. This is, okay. We found our first tangent. Let's buckle up, guys. We're going on a wild ride. The first time I saw a partnership that I thought was a bit odd was when Race Ranger announced their association with World Triathlon. Race Ranger, technology designed to stop drafting in non-drafting events, partners with World Triathlon, an event series famous for their non-drafting racing. I thought, okay, that's an interesting partnership, and I've had people feel the need to tell me on Twitter, well, technically it's not associated with, it's got its association with World. I know, I'm well aware of this. weird. Again, I understand because of the relationship that they have with World Triathlon. Blah, 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 blah. Good and great that somebody's wanting to get involved. But then I look at the PTA, the Professional Triathletes Organization, designed to assist long course professional triathletes. Again, partnering with World Triathlon, an event notoriously lacking in long course triathlon offerings for the majority of pros. And again, I can see why they've done it in this point of view, but it's like, I don't know whether it makes the lack of a partnership with Ironman more obvious, and in the like their silence is deafening, or does it appear like, well, you couldn't get Ironman, so these guys will do, or I don't know. It's kind of like other PTO trying to be like, what are they now? Are they a governing? Are they trying to become a bit of a governing body? Are they trying to become just race organizers? Are they a union? Like this sort of thing, it does just make me sort of go, okay, I'm literally scratching my head. Like, what is?
I think it makes the lack of communication and synergy with Iron Man more obvious. That's the answer for me, because anybody, if it's a difficult one, but if you're in the world of triathlon, if you're an entity, a stakeholder within the world of triathlon, then we've said this so many times that a rising tide raises all ships. So if there's an opportunity to partner with, even at different distances, and organizations coming together on the same weekend, working together, creating a triathlon roadshow, everything's there. The energy's pumping. Everybody can get. Some people can do long course. Some people do short course. Whatever the crack is, I would suggest the partnerships and the linking together, and at least talking to each other in a sort of, in a civilized and, yes, we're all in the same boat here way. All that does is highlight that these two stakeholders are doing it, whereas Ironman are just completely siloing themselves in their own little bubble, and that for me is what sings most out of all of this.
I mean, I've worked it out, mate. While you were talking, a bolt of lightning came down and hit my brain, and I've actually worked out the reason for this partnership. Now, I'm not sure if you're quite ready for this, but it's a pretty exciting concept, James. And I reckon our audience is going to be pretty excited to hear that I've worked this out. The PTO is partnering with World Triathlon because they want to make long course triathlon an Olympic event. There you go. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
The silence is definitely. No, I think you're right. I'm certainly not opposed to them having a partnership with World Triathlon. I would, maybe there's something to do with the ranking system. I mean, because I guess World Triathlon have their own ranking system for short course athletes, and maybe they're trying to talk with them about getting their ranking system ratified again. Everybody loves the ranking system chat, but let's move on to the nuts and bolts of this stuff, and that is that they have made a number of changes to how they are operating their race series this year, and the implications for their rankings. Last year, we saw the top 50 athletes in the world invited to come and race both the Canadian US Open, and then I think you had to be the top 4 ranked in your team, and then 2 wildcards for the Collins Cup. This year, they've made some announcements that the US and European Open will only be guaranteed spots for the top 30 ranked PTO athletes in both the men's and women's race. And in Asia, in the Singapore race, it will only be the top 20. Now, that's the first little change. Should we go through all the changes, or do you want to unpack them one at a time? What do you want to do?
No, let's go through them all, and then we'll talk about the implications in one lump, shall we?
Yep. The prize purse for the PTO Tours has gone from $1 million down to $600,000. And the prize split has changed. Last year, you got $100,000 for first place, $70,000 for second place, $50,000 for third place. This year, you get $100,000 for first place, $50,000 for second place, and $35,000 for third place. That's it.
Yeah, that is. It's a strange. I mean, they've slipped it in as part of these changes, and I quite like the reduction in amount of pros that are selected to race, because it does kind of focus more on the very elite selection of the rankings that are called to come and race these races, as long as they all just go and race. Not all of them will have to race all the time, but as long as we get a big chunk of people going and racing these races, then that's a good thing. I like that slimming down part of it. What worries me is more the prize purse element, because they came in all guns blazing, and we're going to be putting a huge amount of money in triathlon, and I'm sure they still are. I'm sure if you average it out with the amount of events they're doing, the amount they're putting in is still more than the amount they were when the prize purses were bigger. It's just the optics of reducing the prize purse is a little concerning to me. I'm not sure I like that sort of as a look for what they're trying to achieve. I'd have started lower and maintained lower rather than started higher and then reduced the prize purses as the events unfolded.
Yeah, there's a lot to this to me. I think, and it's not all bad. I for one, I mean, I think I've been pretty vocal about. I think we need to make the field sizes smaller and more concentrated on the top end athlete. Firstly, if Ironman came out and announced this change, people would be ripping them a fucking new one. Can you imagine if Ironman came out and said, we've actually decided that we're going to lower the... I mean, it's pretty hard to lower it when it's already so low. But I think
it would be in negative figures, wouldn't it, if Ironman lowered their prize purses?
But again, I just feel like if Ironman came out and made these announcements, they would get ripped a new one. The biggest issue I have with this now is when we look at the announcements made last week around the changes to the ranking and I guess the tiered races, where every PTO tiered race is a diamond tier race, which means you can earn maximum points at a PTO Tour race. And you have to be top ranked to do those top tiered races. My concern is that creates, I guess, a bit of a self-perpetuating ecosystem where it's very hard to get into that top tier race unless you're already in it. Like, that's one thing that sort of concerns me. And I would hope or think that there would need to be some sort of mechanism in place to overcome that. Because if you suddenly are in that top 20 or 30 athletes and you just do those PTO races, you maximize your points every time. You don't stay out of it. And it's because the reason I kind of also like it, though, is it does, without saying so, create what I've been arguing for a long time is this, like, these tiered events, which it's literally a tiered event, but there's some element of you have to get, you have to relegate or you have to earn your position amongst them. I said that the prize money thing doesn't surprise me. I've said this again a lot. No, actually, I'm going to go back a little bit and say is I feel like when you look at these races and the fact that they've committed to pay, 50 deep and they pay everybody, and it's great and it's good for developing the athletes, and I get it. But I feel like with something like this, when we're talking about professional sports, there needs to be a very clear difference between support and reward, because with a lot of what the PTO has done, I feel like that's become extremely vague and muddy, because all the discussions I've seen about this and what we're going to talk about, the changes to the end of year bonuses, the two become mixed up. Because to me, professional sports means the best athletes get rewarded the most, they make the most money. But then you have the lower athletes who are impacted by the inability to race these events and the changes to the end of year bonus we'll get to next, saying, yeah, but it's now harder, and what about my support, and I need to develop and stuff like that. So I think that's something that's become, I guess in hindsight, they've realized, yeah, we needed to be a bit clearer. These are the support things we have in place, and these are the reward things we have in place. But I mean, I think it's fine. I'm not surprised. I feel like the way that they cover their races anyway, and I've said this online a lot this week, you only see the top 10. Like, I mean, honestly, who came fourth in the Edmonton race, the PTO Tour race, off the top of your head? I think it was Sam Laidlow. I know that Christian Gustav had that battle, and I know that Sam Laidlow, was leading, and then Ali blew up and had the cramp. I know Aaron Royal came third, but I don't think I saw Aaron Royal at any point during the race until he crossed the line. And outside of those guys, I couldn't tell you what happened in the race. And then I look at the US race, where I know that we had Colin Chartier, Sam Long, and Magnus have their battle. Couldn't tell you who came 8th. Couldn't tell you who came 10th. Not off the top of my head. And because I never saw it happen. I never saw it unfold on the screen. That's why I'm like, restrict the fields, restrict the prize money, because you should be paying the people that generate the interest. And that's clearly the top performing athletes. But there does need to then be some mechanism in place to allow those people
if
who
you
maybe
and
out
I
of the top 20
had
or 30.
Our way, if you and I had our way, you'd have that top 30 athletes were allowed to race that tier of races for the season. And then there would be a battle for relegation at the end of the season, where there would be another tier below 100%. That of 20 to 30 athletes who were battling for promotion the next year. And you just have a league system, much like the Premier League or something like that.
Yeah. Because well, let's move into the the next part then, because I think we actually need to discuss it as a whole, and that's that they've also at the same time announced changes to the interview bonuses. In the past, they paid from 1 to 100 deep. 51 to 100 all received a $2,000 annual bonus. They changed it this year, so they only pay 50 deep now. Now, the amount they pay is the same, so that they've not reduced the amount that they pay in the interview bonus, but they're redistributing it. So, which means I'm assuming that they're going to pay those 25 to 50 athletes, or 21 to 50, probably get a bit more, and then it'll roll up. This is where I'm talking about the difference between reward and support, because 51 to 100, you're not getting that because you've earned it, right? Like this is a coach's award. Thanks for trying. Here's a little something so you don't feel left out a little bit, or here's a little bit to help you, or whatever. I feel like that's where these problems come in, and I've said this 100 times, and I'll continue to say it. I don't even think they should pay the end of year bonuses. Fuck off the end of year bonuses. You earn a contract. You earn the ability to race those diamond tier races, the PTO races, where you can access the big prize money. I would rather they kept the prize money big, limited the fields to 20, and made it that you had to earn a spot. And you can have 5 wild cards, and then we have the battle in the lower ones to get your ranking up. And as I said, there has to be one big point race that the top tier athletes can't do to give them a chance to somehow break in. And then you have the story, oh shit, we've got bloody Jackson Laundry's currently ranked 19th. If he doesn't go well at this race, if he doesn't deliver, top 10 finish here, he's going to slip out of the top 20. He's going to lose his contract for next year. Sorry, Jackson, not trying to pick on you, just like an example, but that's where they need to go, because at the moment it is just so vague. And again, I just feel like there's not enough being done to focus on athlete development. It's reliant upon the federations to go through those short course systems, like we've seen with athletes like Jan Frodeno, Alistair Brownlee.
Do you think
Taylor Knibb, Ashley Gentle,
the PTO are too reliant at the moment on the athletes playing ball for them to actually put something in place that the athletes may not particularly like?
Yeah, I think so. And here's where it also gets interesting. And it was actually Dave Tilbury-Davis, who is one of the best coaches out there. Dave, we're huge fans of what you do. And he made the point. Does this mean that those athletes who are suddenly not ranked in the top 50 still have to conform to the PTO branding guidelines? Because again, if you don't know this, to be a part of the PTO, you have to commit to having the PTO logo on your kit, which means that's a spot you could have sold to another brand that you're not able to. So it's not like this is all just, goody handouts. Like there are contractual obligations on the athletes who are part of the PTO. Does that change? If you're suddenly not getting a bonus from the PTO, do you go, well, why am I putting your logo on my kit? And from my point of view, why the fuck do we need the PTO logos on the kit? I don't understand why there's such a focus on the branding of the PTO. That never made sense to me. And every time I see it, and because I always forget when I'm dealing with, I was getting some media shirts done for Joe the other day, and I'd forgotten about that. He's like, oh shit, PTO logo. I was like, fuck, that's right. Shit, Google PTO logo. Fuck. I just, it's all starting to make me a little bit confused about, or curious, or, are things going to have to change as a result of this? Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what rolls off the back of this. This announcement's only really just been made, so I yet to see too many athletes responding to it. I haven't seen the chatter around it online yet, so I don't know whether you've seen anybody talk about it or respond to it.
Well, this is what I've seen. I've only really seen the lower tier athletes who are directly impacted by this speaking up, and that's when I talk about the reward versus support element, because the narrative is, this harms my ability to grow as a professional, because suddenly I've lost, even though it's not much money, I've lost even that little bit of money, which helped me, maybe it allowed me to pay for a massage every week, or it allowed me to, go and get that swim technique training done, whatever it was that they were using that money for. It helped them to be a little bit more professional. And that's the problem, I think, is that we already see that long course triathlon is such a go do it by yourself sort of sport. There's no real help from anybody. There's no real, which again, a lot of professional sports don't, but they also golf, for example, there's federations that help with, triathlon is, you've got to be a very select group who go through the juniors. And then once you go long, you're done. The support is over. Good luck. It's up to you. The P2 sort of, again, maybe it's just a misunderstanding on my part or our part or the audience's part of what their actual role was, because it's, I don't know. It's an athlete-owned organization, and it sounds like if you're all the athletes that own it, why would you approve this decision as well? Or I don't know. There must be a reason. And from a commercial point of view, I completely get it, because I don't think that they've made quite the impact that they were expecting yet. We know that those age group races weren't well taken up. We know that the broadcast probably hasn't had the reach, or hasn't been quite as exciting as we know, and it probably wasn't what we were promised. Something had to give at some point, and you also have to wonder, the bloke, is back in this. What's his name? Mike Moritz. He's clearly a clever guy. At some point, he's going to be going, well, where's what are we doing here? Like, we can't just keep operating as if it's a charity, because it's not. It's trying to make a legitimate, broadcastable sport. So I don't think the changes are bad from that point of view. But again, I can understand why people would be confused, and I think it needs to be clearer about, is it support or reward?
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with all the points you made. I'm intrigued to see what rolls off the back of it. And, in terms of locations, keep going with these interesting locations, even Milwaukee. I'm sure there's something wonderful about Milwaukee that we're both missing. But as you've said, I like the refining of it, but I just don't think it's a finished model yet. I think it's far from where it should be. If it's going to succeed, it's far from that final model of what we're going to see that is the successful version of it. And we're still unsure whether it's going to succeed or not. But there are steps between now and then.
And I think what you said it earlier too, is maybe a better method would have been to start small and build up, rather than come in and be like, we're going to pay the biggest prize money, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And you set that expectation extremely high. And instead of, that's the starting point, that seems to have been they've sort of predicted their end, and they're going backwards now in a lot of ways. And
I'm sure
I repeat myself so much.
Per like capita, they're probably paying more now. If they add all their prize monies together across the extra races they're rolling out, they're paying more now than they were when they started. Yeah, exactly. But despite it's been reduced, they're paying more in total. It's just the optics don't do them any favors.
Actually, is that true? 600,000 per race prize money. 3 is 1.8, and so it's actually less prize money, but it's less athletes racing, so those who race get more or similar. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like you're right. I think we're seeing this like not final form version of it, and again, I'm not saying that they're done or anything, because I
but
really
it's not just
hope
one
the
more
PTO
race, though, is it? Because
I feel like we all just need to
Singapore as well, and so they're adding. It's not just they've added one more.
That's the new race, though.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. But then they've got this Ibiza one.
Last year they had the Collins Cup, Canada, America. This year they've got Asia.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So it was 3 last year, 4 last year.
I got my numbers
this year, 3 last year.
Anyway,
obviously James Bale. Come on, mate. What do you think? Yeah. Come on, mate. No, cool. Look, I said I'm curious to see how the conversation goes. As I said, I think there's lots of moving parts. I can understand why, if you're an athlete who, I mean, again, I don't know how many athletes I've seen who are excited to go do those PTU races this year, and suddenly it's going to be a lot harder. And it might mean that we're going to see people really have to shift their way of racing this year. A lot of people who aren't in that top 20 or 30 have probably built their year around doing those PTU events to earn some money. And suddenly they have to get into the top 30 rankings to get a spot. So we could suddenly see a lot of these early season races become very loaded, which again, for me isn't a bad thing, because we get to see great racing. Because people are so determined to try to get into that spot, which I guess is the point of it, right? It is about creating an ecosystem.
Exactly. You want to create an ecosystem where people are trying to scrabble to be in something. I still think it should be leagues, though. Make it leagues so that there's a fight
100%, mate.
Yeah, fight for relegation at the end of the year and a fight for promotion, and that'll be amazing.
I got a reply to one of my tweets this morning. I woke up to it, and I'm sorry, I don't know. I have no idea who this person is, and
it wasn't me.
Because I put up the same thing. Make it a league. No, it wasn't you. It was a coaching company, and it was like, this is exactly what I suggested they do 15 years ago. I gave them a plan about how Ironman and Challenge could work together to make this possible. It fell on them like dead weight. So I was like, the error you made, mate, is to suggest that Ironman work with anybody. Like, that's the error you made, because the actual idea is pretty good. But we'll see.
And I wonder how this entity put that idea to them just 15 years ago. Was it just like a
yelling into the cloud?
Yelling into the cloud? I'm interested.
Andrew, it's me. It's your mate. It's your mate.
It's me. It's Dave.
Yeah. It's Dave. Dave. Mate, you know. Anyway, that's the PTO stuff done. So I'm sorry, all those people who are like, fucking hell, PTO talk again. Jesus.
We got it out of the way early, though, didn't we? We did it. It's done now. Now we can talk about all the exciting stuff.
the exciting stuff, like the return of the Super League Triathlon Arena Games, mate.
Ba, ba, ba,
Without
ba,
giving
ba,
you even the slightest
ba.
hint, who's your pick in the women's race?
Who's my pick in the women's race? I would say
Come on, which
Gina
superstar of
Sereno.
short course triathlon are you excited to see dominate?
Gina
Yeah, like, what, what,
Sereno,
what,
mate,
what,
is
what do
gonna
you think? What do you
gonna
think
win it.
her advantage is over the other athletes?
Her advantage over the athletes is she's ranked
What's her
54,
competitive
which is the
advantage?
lowest ranked athlete, highest ranked athlete, 54. So she's
The
the highest ranked
highest,
on the
the
start sheet.
highest ranked.
Yeah, yeah. So therefore, she is gonna
Let's,
win.
yes,
But Sophie Lynn was part of the Australian bronze
mate.
winning mixed relay at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, so she must be pretty good as well. And
Dude, it's
Dominka
almost like we must have read the
Jaminki,
same document.
72, is the top ranked athlete in the other heat as well. So Gina and Dominka will be fighting it out in the finals. That's how I see it taking place, mate.
These arena games, mate, failing to, again, much like last year, failing to get me super excited about it because looking at those again, the women's race in particular. I'm like, where's
Hold up,
the? I mean, Jess is
hold
obviously
up,
injured, but where's the
hold up,
Georges? Where's the
hold up,
Floras? Where's the?
hold up. Hold. We're gonna we before we go into the actual talking about it and giving it shit or whatever. Let's give the audience some details about what the race is going to be. So it's going to be a swim, 200
Please.
meter and a 50 meter Olympic sized pool, 4 lengths at the Park Olympic Sports Centre. Bike is 4 kilometers ridden on Zwift, and the run is 1 kilometers on a self powered curved treadmill. The racing will take place in a heats and final basis. In the heats, athletes will race twice. Both stages will be in a swim, bike, run format. The times for the first stage will provide a pursuit style start order for the second. Thus, in the second race, the winner in the first stage will start and the second place finisher will start behind them. The number of seconds slower than they were in the first race. Overall heat results will thus be based on when you finish the run portion of that second stage. No requirement for points accumulation, etc. Qualification for the finals will be achieved by the top 4 finishers in each heat, plus the next 2 fastest athletes from across the 2 heats, leaving 10 athletes to race in each of the finals. The finals, how will they work? They will qualify. The athletes who qualify for the finals will race 3 more times over these formats: swim, bike, run bike, swim bike, run. There'll be a very short gap between each of the stages to allow the athletes to prepare their kit, but the action barely stops. I love this, mate. All right. I know that we haven't got the names in it, but I love the format and I wish we had the names in it. I really do. I really, really do. Anyway, carry on.
When you were starting to say, let's give the athletes some details, I thought you were about to say they swim, then they bike, then they run. I was like, mate, I think at this point our audience understands what a triathlon involves. No, you're right. I love the format too. Like, this is my struggle with it. I really like the arena games. I think as a concept, it's fantastic. But we saw this last year, and we've seen it this year. The names just aren't coming. There is a world championship up for grab in the arena games. You can get the esports world champion title, and when you look at the start lists, where the biggest draw cards in the men's race are long course athletes. Lionel Sanders being there is the number one thing that they're promoting. That's problematic, right? Like, where's the support? And I understand we've got Abu Dhabi next weekend, so the big hitters are going to probably be focused on that. But I would have thought, I don't know, maybe some names that we're familiar with. I mean, Henry Skurman, 100% is probably is definitely the biggest name from short course race, from triathlon probably. But then you got some names like Chase McQueen, Dan Dixon. I saw that we've got again his name's Aurelien Raphael, who I think he won last year's first race, I believe. So he's clearly good at this format of racing. But it is just exactly what we spoke about last year, where we're just not seeing the athlete support of this concept that is a great concept. And maybe I would have thought that we would start to see a bit more specialization. Some athletes who are, I mean, maybe this is why Lionel's doing it, because again, I think he'd be very good at this. But it's
a massive,
so hard to really get excited about something when you just
massive problem for me that the biggest names in what is an exciting, indoor, intense esports environment are Lionel Sanders and Jackson Laundry, who are long course athletes. It just doesn't compute to me. We should be seeing, like you say, it should be an absolute specialization taking place at this point. The first few races of Arena Games, the first few years of Arena Games were so exciting. You had the big names absolutely killing themselves to try and win this thing. And it was really interesting to see who would translate over to this new and exciting format. And it really was new and exciting. And I say that with an element of surprise because I was so against it when it first in my brain. I'm not Jimmy negative, but I wasn't up for it. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, and it blew me away watching those first few arena games, and I was there for it. And it's so disappointing to see it go this way, where you haven't got the Brownlees, you haven't got the Mislachucks there, you haven't got, like you say, like the women you listed off. We haven't got the world
Hayden
champions
Wilds,
there.
the Alex Yees, the Georgia Taylor Browns, the Cassandra Beaugrands.
Yeah, indeed.
Where are they all? And
everybody?
Again, this is my counter. No, but this is, if it is because Abu Dhabi is next week, then fucking change when the races are. I still don't understand how we end this situation every year where we keep having conflicts with races. Now, clearly, Super League are working with World Triathlon around this. It's a World Triathlon sanctioned event. You have to go through World Triathlon, your federation, to get a start. So why the fuck are they putting the races on where there's a potential conflict, which means that the best names of the sport aren't going to do the event? That's baffling to me. Like, I just can't. I keep seeing this stuff, and it's like, is this a restriction? World Triathlon's put it on Super League. Is it a case of Super League going, you know what? Fuck you, World Triathlon. We're sick of you restricting every goddamn thing we do. We're going to put our races on the same time as you, and we're going to offer 10 times the prize money, and like actually fucking let the athletes pick where they want to go. Like I am sick of. God, I'm ranting. I'm getting negative again. It says this. I am really sick of this way where we sort of see most people in triathlon, and we criticize Ironman a lot for not playing ball, but Ironman don't give a fuck what anybody's doing. They go, we're putting our races on when we want to put them on, and if the athletes want to race them, it's up to them. And everybody else goes, oh well, let's all just like kumbaya and play nice, but we won't put our race here, and then we end up with this weird thing where we get conflicts or clashes. And I guess you could say PTO have sort of done that, put in their tour race the weekend before 70.3 hours. But sure, of course, man. I always envisioned Super League to be like you know what, World Triathlon, you guys suck. What you do is not good. We're going to show you how it can be better. And the athlete's going to come to us because we offer better opportunities for exposure. We offer better prize money. We offer a better athlete experience.
And we're going to be strategic in where we put our races so that it doesn't fuck up the rest of their season if they do come.
And it's somehow just become so diluted down to this limp thing it's almost like, excuse me, World Triathlon, do you mind if we do this? Excuse me, World Triathlon, is it okay if we do this? Like, I just, fuck them. Come on, Super League. Let's get the fire back. Let's get some, bar your teeth a little bit and fire up, because you the Super League format of racing, if I had to choose Super League or World Triathlon to watch with both with stack, it's Super League every day of the week. And I cannot understand why any rational fan of triathlon would choose to watch a World Triathlon broadcasted event over a Super League race. And Super League surely at some point have to go, yeah, you're right. Like we've got the power here. So yeah.
So if you are interested in watching the Super League Arena Games, they can be found on Super League Triathlon's website, YouTube channel, and Triathlon Live TV via Eurosport, Discovery Plus, L'Equipe, Viaplay, Outside TV, and others. The live broadcast show for the finals runs from 17:30 to 19:45 local time. That's 22:30 to quarter to 1 in the UK in the morning and 11:30 at night till 1:45 in the morning Central European time. I haven't got what it is Australian time in front of me, and I can't figure it out.
No, fair enough. I know that Canadian afternoons are our mornings, so it normally works pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, if it's let's say it's midnight in the UK, it'll be 9 in the morning in Australia, give or take.
Okay. Are we going to see Lionel Sanders make it out of the heats?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, go on, son.
Imagine, can you imagine if you are a person who's not watched Arena Games before, you know Lionel's racing, so that's why you want to watch it. So you tune in at the allocated time to start watching the final, and there's just no Lionel, and they're like, "Oh, what happened? Oh, he got eliminated in the heat." That would be like they're going to have to find a way to make it happen, right? Like there might be some questionable DQs or some questionable penalties or something to sort of make sure
the heats aren't broadcast. It's only the finals that are broadcast, so we're not going to have the opportunity to see the heats. Is he going to make it out the heats? Yeah, why not? I mean, I will say if we
He's a
had
good
the
athlete,
biggest
mate.
name, if we had the biggest names in world triathlon, if it was a start list populated by, Hayden Wild,
Top
Johnny
20.
Brownlee, Blumenfels, whatever, if it was everybody there, then no, he would get utterly, utterly fucked. But being that it is not, I would say, yeah, why not? Have a go at it.
I think we'll see him through. My prediction is, who's going to win this thing? I mean, Aurelian Raphael, who won it last time, clearly knows he's quite good at this distance. I think he finished 4th in Singapore as well. Or was that, maybe that was Dan or Chase? Like, I think there's a lot of those young guys. I'm, again, not biased, but I'm very curious to see how Henry starts. I know that Henry has gone through probably the hardest 2 years in the sport of any professional athlete in it for a long time. So he's absolutely ripping ready to go, and he has a lot to prove. And I know that he's very motivated. Like, this has become an actual, like, he's targeting these arena games this year, which I like. He's targeting every race he can get his hands on at the moment. So Henry's a very motivated athlete. Yeah, there's definitely things I'm curious about. I just, again, wish we'd see those fields. Also, just worth noting, I don't have a lot to say about it, but did you see that Super League this week announced that they purchased the Chicago and New York triathlons as well?
Yeah, we mentioned it last week on the podcast.
Did we?
Yeah, very briefly. But yeah, I'm my pick. Okay. My pick, simply to be simply just because it would blow my mind, is Lionel Sanders to win the men's, mate, because I want him to be the esports world champion.
So do I. Like that, Lionel Sanders being an esports world champion would like make sense. Everything would be right in the world.
Hey,
mate, no,
everything's right.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, perfect. Zwift would just be like, brilliant. Have some more money. Have some more money. Sanders, there you go.
Just another little side note about the women's race. I know that Jeannie Metzler was meant to be on the start list, and she's a late withdrawal. I don't know what's going on with Jeannie Metzler, but she has been. I know she's had some struggles since that 3rd place finish. Was it 3rd place at 70.3 Worlds? 2nd, 3rd in 2021. I hope she's okay, because again, I feel like she was really starting to really get some good momentum going, and again, we just haven't really seen her do anything since. So I hope she's okay. I would have liked to see Tamara Jewett do this. That's a Canadian athlete, long course athlete. I would have liked to see on the start list, because we know how good her run is, and I think that this sort of format would suit her, just because the swim is in a pool, which also makes it a bit easier for most triathletes to swim in a pool than open water. Yeah, that's that.
Onwards.
What have you got for me, mate?
Cam Brown's retiring, isn't he? After his 25th start at Ironman New Zealand. Cameron Brown, who is a 12-time winner of Ironman New Zealand, has announced that this year will be his last race as a professional. The 50-year-old was one of New Zealand's greatest ever long-distance triathletes and a 4-time Ironman World Championship podium finisher. Like I said, he achieved a podium finish at the Ironman World Championships 4 times across a 5-year period. It's been 2001 and 2005. His career has spanned 35 years, which is almost as long as I've been alive. And he's announced that the 2023 Nutrigrain Ironman New Zealand, taking place on Saturday, the 4th of March in Taupo, will be the last time he races as a pro. His first Ironman was in 1997. So good on you, mate. Good on you. Congratulations, and I hope he goes out well.
Cam Brown is a true legend of the sport. One of those guys who, when you talk about the best athletes to never win Kona, he's a name that definitely pops up. But, as you said, so many podium finishes there, so many great races there. I love to point out the fact that Cam is still fit and racing to Macca at every opportunity I get. I'm just like, what's your excuse, Chris? Look at Cam. He's still going. Yeah, amazing. And he deserves nothing but praise for, I think, what he has done for triathlon, especially in New Zealand. I know that he's an icon over there. Like, the Kiwis love Cam Brown. So to see him go out at Ironman New Zealand, perfect. Like, it's the perfect way to wrap up. And then we're going to have him and Sebi Kienle sharing the course. Both doing this, Sebi's on his retirement tour.
He mentions that. He says his first Ironman was 1997, one of my favourites, as I'd watched the race since 1988. After seeing the stars of the sport race, it was a dream of mine to one day race at Ironman New Zealand and also try to win it, but I really didn't know that it would happen 12 times. Winning is not realistic anymore, although I can say I would love to, but being 50 years of age brings so many challenges to the day. Trying to stay injury free has been tough over the last 5 years. I just want to put in a solid performance and have the race go as smoothly as possible. If I can do that, I know I can still produce a solid time over the day. I'm pretty sure there'll be emotions. I'll try and channel as much of it as I can into going hard, but I'm sure the finishing line will bring a few tears out. You know, he's like you say, Sebastian Kienle's going to be there, and it's going to be a cool race to see take place. But he won't win it. But you never know. You never know. The stars might align. Something might happen, and he might finish on the podium.
That'd be fantastic, actually. Yeah, man, it's crazy to think 50 years old and he's still racing pro. He could still whoop 99.9% of the amateurs out there. Do it.
Oh,
Man, it's so good. I love it. Yeah, and Cam's a champion. Well done, Cam. Congratulations on it. A stellar career. Let's stay in New Zealand, mate, because we touched on a race that happened last weekend, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. That was, of course, Challenge Wanaka. Happened down on the South Island, New Zealand, one of the most beautiful and tough races on the circuit. Now, I was sort of following a little bit because of obviously Sebi Keenley was racing, and then one of my friends, Rebecca Clark, was also racing in the women's race. I've got the results. I don't have the times on it, but I know that Jack Moody won the race. Mike Phillips from New Zealand came second. Sebastian Keenley came third. In the women's race, Australian Grace Theck won. Els Visser from the Netherlands came second, and Rebecca Clark came third. Do you have many thoughts around the Wanaka race, mate?
well, only that. You mean that's not fucking about times, is it? In terms of finishing times for that course, because it is a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenging course. I'm really pleased to see Sebastian Keenley finish on the podium in his year of triumph, and good to see that Jack Moody put in a strong performance and won by just over a minute to Mike Phillips. So a solid local result there. But an Australian taking the victory on the women's side, mate. A third place was the first New Zealander we saw on the women's side.
Yeah, Bex. I think Challenge Wanaka is the race I hear more people say that I want to go and do that race and then not do it. Like even myself, I'd love to go and do Challenge Wanaka one day. Again, I've been to Wanaka. I'm sure you've been to Wanaka. It is one of the most spectacular locations on the entire planet. I think we should organize maybe in the next year or two. We should get the all the listeners together to come down. We'd go to Challenge Wanaka. It'd be a great little event to get behind and support. And as I said, I like the tough courses. Like I still think my favorite race I've ever done was Challenge Phuket, which is also the hardest triathlon I've ever raced in my life. Like there's something very joyful about a really tough, honest, hard course and finish, and you get that real sense of achievement that is again, I think why a lot of us do the sport. So it's definitely a bucket list race for me. Do you have anything to add before I move on to the next little bit?
No, not really. No. Race done. Results read. Enthusiasm for Sebastian Keenley given. Done.
Well, there was another little race that happened in Wanaka over the weekend, which was the Oceania Cup event. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because friend of the podcast, Kyle Smith, came second. Now, this was a sprint distance race, and I believe it was an Australian who won, but it's not so much about the results I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to talk about Kyle because as Kyle said at the end of last year when I sat down with him for this podcast, his focus this year and for the next 2 years, I suppose, is to try to get a spot to go to the Olympics for New Zealand. Now, my initial thoughts when he told me this, I was like, but dude, why? Like, you're doing quite well at middle and long distance now. Like, I feel like you're really on the precipice of like a breakthrough. He had that incredible performance in St. George, and we've seen him, training with Jan and going strength to strength. But he was like, no, I want to do my thing. I want to help Hayden to try to win a gold medal and get that spot for Paris. He was ahead of Taylor Reid, who was an Olympian, I think, for New Zealand in 2021. He was ahead of Jake Birtwistle, who did get disqualified, but was also an Olympian for Australia. Mate, I think it's a pretty good. Like Kyle Smith is. Look, anybody who thought Kyle Smith was just a middle long course distance guy is absolutely wrong. Like this was an impressive little effort from Kyle Smith.
Yeah, man, he's legit got range, isn't he? The ability to step down and do that well over a short distance. It's certainly New Zealand New Zealand hasn't got the biggest pool of athletes to draw from. Hayden Wilde is their serious medal contender. So if he can finish in front of other athletes that were Olympians for New Zealand in races where he has to make a name for himself and shine, then that only shows that he's going in the right direction, doesn't it?
I saw that he's on the start list for Abu Dhabi next weekend as well, which again, I'm going to be I'm so keen for that Abu Dhabi race. I know I was complaining about why would you watch a World Triathlon event over Super League? I wouldn't, but we've got. It's always interesting to see where athletes start their year in a race
first
like
race
Abu
of the
Dhabi.
season, isn't it? I'm always keen for the first race of the Formula One season until that race itself reminds me how dull it is, and I'm keen. I'm pesting to see where the athletes line up and where they are in the Abu Dhabi race because it gives us a form indication for the rest of the year.
It's also, again, a little spy of the podcast, Fernanda, who I know you met in St. George, who's the number one Christian Blumenfeld frother on the planet. And I know you're listening, Christian, and I know you know exactly who I'm talking about. She was messaging me last night and she was saying, have you noticed that Christian hasn't posted anything on Strava in 5 days? I was like, look, I don't follow this shit as closely as you do. Like, I'm not that interested. But I went and had a look, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. And she goes, again, this is the level, Fernanda. I know you're bright red and hating this, but she also said, look at all the social media stuff. They've got a film crew out there working with Gustav. There's no Christian. All of Gustav's stuff, no Christian. And I'm like, your conspiracy theory tinfoil hat is on bad. I go, are you suggesting that he's injured? She goes, or sick. I thought, well, yeah, maybe. I mean, you know what? The athletes get sick when they're getting towards a race, but yeah, it will be interesting to see where everybody, again, as I've said before, James, but it's a pre-Olympic year, mate. So anything can happen. It's very interesting to see where people will sort of start this season because there's a lot on the line this year. A lot of people going out there trying to get those Olympic points, trying to secure their spot for their nation at the Olympics next year. We've got the test event in August, which I'm so excited. I obviously want to see the athletes race, but I'm really excited to see what that course looks like because we know it's in Paris. Like it's an actual downtown city race in Paris, which will be, I think, a fantastic location for it. But yeah, World Triathlon Series is about to kick off, and it's I'm pretty keen for it. Again, it just shows the power of the names. I'd be this excited about Arena Games if we saw the same list of athletes racing. So it just shows, get a good feel together. And
it's the power of the names. Final thing from me, mate. Final thing from me is the cross-pollination of two worlds. It's not often that the film world reaches into triathlon, but I was intrigued to read that Leslie Patterson, pro triathlete and winner of 5 times world Xterra world champion, was one of the co-writers on All Quiet on the Western Front, which is a brilliant film. And they won a load of BAFTAs: Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Film Not in the English Language, Best Original Score, Best Sound, Best Director, Best Film. And it's got Oscar nominations as well. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Oscar nominations. And she's a pro triathlete, mate. She half wrote a film. I fucking love that. And it's a good film.
I do always, because I also saw this. I think it was maybe 220 or Try 24/7 who'd started posting about this. And you're right. Like, I always love to see the way that we sort of, I guess I love to see the way triathlon loves to, like, look at us, like, look at the other things that our incredible athletes do, which I find funny because I think that if you actually really looked, I think there's a lot of very, very successful people in many different fields who participate in this sport, which it always makes me chuckle a little bit because, again, I know some people who've done triathlon who are some of the most successful people in their field or different areas of expertise. It's great. And I I know that this movie's got a lot of Oscar buzz. To see a 5-time Xterra world champion, it's cool, man. It is always, like I said, good to see that little bit of cross-pollination and see the other areas where triathlon sort of pops up and the way that that's us. Look, puff our chest up and be like, we feel good about ourselves.
Yeah, love it. Good film. Watch it. Everybody watch it. Other than that, I'm out. There's nothing else to talk about. Let's go home.
Nothing else to talk about at all. You're battling your cold. You're going to get better, hopefully. But James,
I need a tissue. I'm everything's evacuating out of my nose, and I'm trying my best to compose myself and not sniff down the microphone.
Evacuating is a curious choice of term. I don't know if I quite like that image. Mate, if people want to find out more about us, where do they need to go?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at tford14 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app. It's super easy and very, very helpful. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow. Got any suggestions, guests, comments, criticisms, send the DM to Tim Ford on Instagram.
Exactly right. Again, mate, thank you. I know you've done very well this week, mate. I appreciate the hard yards you've put in. We will definitely be back with more. We are lining up some interviews. I've actually got some meetings this week about the podcast and the other podcasts that we're starting to podcast, things that are sort of happening in the background. So stay tuned. There's going to be some exciting announcements. I know that we announced my replacement MX group this week. So if you're listening and you haven't seen that, jump into the Facebook group where you'll find out all of that information. You will, of course, be the first to know about the soon to be announced changes to the community and all that we are doing. Jimbo, a pleasure as always. I appreciate your work, and I'll talk to you next week.
Cheerio.